several different dairies from all around, getting on tanker trucks and being highly processed, and then trucked further and tractor trailers. We didn't have a family dairy here anymore that was bottling right on the farm. So I thought, well, we got just about everything else food-wise in Asheville, but that's one thing we don't have, so let me jump on that. So that was a practical idea. The other thing that came about on this journey to go from whatever I was doing before to being a milkman, and I'm as happy as I can be. I got to tell you, I'm 4 months in, and I'm happy with doing this job and any job I've ever had. My son just turned 12, and just before my son was born, a week before my son was born, my grandfather died. And because my wife was pregnant and my grandfather was up in New York and we were down here, I didn't go to the funeral because I was afraid I'd miss the birth, and I knew my grandfather would say birth is more important than death. And long story short, my grandfather was an awesome individual and had a huge impact on me, more than anybody else. And as he was getting older, when we would talk about things, and even when he wasn't so old, I guess, looking back now, he wasn't so old. He was in the 60s or the 50s. At the time, I thought he was, but, when I was a little kid. But we always used to go on walks. I'd see him every weekend. And he'd say, Jonathan, things are real complicated now. But when I was your age, my whole world was within 8 blocks. So you got to remember, I didn't get a driver's license until I was 45. He grew up in the Bronx and then Brooklyn. So we walked everywhere, or we took the train. So, we never had a phone growing up. We didn't have TV. So I knew everybody in my neighborhood. And I lived in he had 4 older brothers who I knew, all my uncles, who were all just real interesting, just hard-working, work with their hands kind of individuals. And he lived 5 flights up. They all shared a room. He said, I remember the Iceman coming up, just hauling that block of ice, those 5 flights. Put it up, and I remember the milkman coming, I remember the eggman coming, I remember the vegetable man coming. And that's how it was. The grocery stores and cars and all the stuff you had, we didn't have that. I had like a couple of sets of clothes. I remember when I was young, he's like, why are you putting that in the wash? You mustn't have to wash those clothes. You can wear those again. It just sort of had that attitude. And anyway, there was just something about it that, to me, that he was just very real, very basic, very solid. And when it came to food, it wasn't like, there was no health food back then, whatever per se, but it was just like, he dealt with farmers and community people, because that's all there was at that time, I guess. That's just, there weren't grocery stores, that's just what it was. So for me, the emotional connection to wanting to do milk, particularly do home delivery, was to sit with my grandfather in the truck a little bit. A lot of times when I'm riding down the road, I look over, and I just feel like he would recognize this. He wouldn't recognize the iPhone, he wouldn't recognize the work I did for the last 10 years, but what I'm doing right now, he would recognize. We can talk.